Just going to do a hello. Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for. That makes you immortal now. He's not going to be long anyway. And wrapping up this veil of tears. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
And we're busy having fun figuring out how to get picture-in-picture working again before we went live. Going live Friday night this week because there is a jiu-jitsu competition tomorrow morning that myself and some of the kids will be at Milwaukee Lutheran High School hosting. Way to go, guys. I'm sure they're just more like leasing it to Fuji BJJ, but however that works, kind of exciting for me at least to see the kids, and still haven't signed up myself, but like, I think I'm gonna.
What's holding you back?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah.
And is it okay
I
not to do it?
My record. It's my record. I don't want to risk my record. It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Okay.
It's so juvenile male. Like, well, then I might have more losses than I do now. Like that's like that. And I'm gonna compete again, but I don't have to this time. I wasn't sure if I would, and so, right. but I really want to do what I was sharing with you, which is just go into it and kind of almost lose on purpose, like get myself in a really bad position right away. Oh. And then play the game from there. And then as opposed to, again, in the silver medal match that I got at the last time I went, where I spent a minute and a half exhausting myself trying to take this guy to the ground. And then once I got on the ground, I had so little oxygen. Actually, really, it was the round right before. I had two right in a row. Right. I had so little oxygen that when we finally got to the ground, I just didn't even know what to do. But that's what I'm there to do, right? And so, contemplating ways to just, you can take me down. You can pass my guard. Now we're gonna play, and if I lose, I lose. But that's where then, but then your record. What if you lose all of them? You know, and I think it's like two and out, but. Anyway, that's tomorrow. Got plenty to talk about tonight with Bible, your questions, Bible answers, and some of our nonsense here at Stop the White Noise. Questions, comments, likes. Send those questions for the show to the contact page at madpxm.com. Please feel free to fill up the chatter this evening. Like us. We always like it when we have more likes than viewers. That's kind of fun. Saturday morning's been able to do that. How about you, Friday night crowd? You're a little different crew, right? Can you keep up? Right now, you're not doing it. So anyway, that's just all about algorithms and blah, blah, blah. And the beast is in charge of it anyway, trying to crush the message. You can get the message straight at RevFisk.com. If you have any trouble getting there, follow the landing page. There's another link to click to get there. It has everything to do with how WordPress hosts sites, blah, blah, blah. But you can definitely, while you're there, click the support button and go to support Stop the White Noise at Patreon and at Subscribestar, both under the category RevFisk, RevFisk. I met someone this week in Rockford who's like, so do you go by Rev or Jonathan? And I was like, well, either one, I suppose, you know. And he introduced himself, started talking, and he is a Rockford area Christian man, Assemblies of God, watches the show.
Really?
Not all of it all the time,
wow.
But enough to know me from Adam, you know. And yeah, kind of cool.
You're just walking down the street.
That was at Rudy's. Cigars. You know, He's like, I've seen you several times. This time I got up the nerve to say hello.
Oh,
yeah. He was cool. Dave was his name.
Well, hey, Dave.
Yeah. So we got again 4 questions tonight, plus some like roundabout questions that we're not going to read them, but I can maybe give some answers to from elsewhere in online land, coming and asking for us. Look at this. We have all other stuff that opened up now as I try to find my way to the grab bag. But I don't know. Do you want to talk about anything else? Normally we spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, right. Just kind of going.
This week, let's see. I have been contemplating some different things that have come across my plate. One of them is a popular, it's a word of encouragement that's popular among young mothers, mothers of young children. And it is when you feel like you just can't do anything during the day. Like you don't move forward productivity wise. And it's common on social media to encourage each other and say, it's okay if you didn't get anything done today. Mm-hmm. And this comment was brought to me by a young man, and he was like, I find so much fault with that idea because it's as if it's okay to just sit around and be lazy. And I was like, oh, well, I see where you're coming from, but I also understand that feeling of like, all I did today was put clothes on people and take clothes off of people and then feed them and then clean them and repeat. And so you don't feel like you're achieving anything other than the basics.
Right. Than life.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I've been wrestling with that kind of in my head because that was my gut response was like, well,
right. Well, I think it's strange to consider. I mean, if you're dealing with like a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old and you kept them alive today, to get to the end of the day and say, I didn't get anything done. Yeah. Maybe cutting yourself short just a touch. Right. I didn't get anything I wanted done. It's okay if I didn't get anything I wanted done today. So that changes that whole phrase up. Yeah. Right there. Right.
Right. Because it doesn't, I guess the predictability of the vocation doesn't necessarily change once they're out of diapers.
No. No. And when it's not them, then your basement's flooding.
Right. Right. Or your dog is throwing up or.
Right, that was fun.
I'm
like, where'd she go?
Just random things happen.
Or
the car battery is dying. And
that was fun this week too.
Dealing with that and taking it to the fix-it man, God be praised. So, it's just, I don't want to be one who's like, oh, absolutely, you don't have to get anything done. But what is the measure we're using?
You don't have to get anything you planned done. Yes. You don't have to get anything you wanted to do done. You did something today, unless you just sat on the couch all day, and in which case, then that was not okay. Right.
Like watching Netflix shows and chatting with your friends on FaceTime or your family members who are far away and neglecting the family members that are right there in your living room. Right. Like that's not what I'm saying is fine. Mm-hmm. But yes, making sure that like
it's okay if you weren't successful in a worldly way today, right? Like it's okay if you didn't have shouts and cheers and bells and whistles and lots of money and fame and fortune and everything was good and health and wellness too. Mm-hmm. And instead you just survived. It's okay that you survived today. And that would be a way to say it too.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Well, in Proverbs,
it's not wrong that you survived
27:1 says it so beautifully. I don't want to misquote it.
Oh, wait, that one again?
Yep, it's that was favorite.
Fun. The rat one? The one about the rat?
Oh, well, that's the one about the DMV and about the rat.
It's the Deo Volente proverb.
Deo Volente proverb says, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth.
Deo Volente.
Yep.
Straight up.
So that was one thing that I had been thinking about. And the other thing was a Christian leader was talking about how it's not a surprise where society has come. And the reason that we as Christians should not be surprised is because we have, well, he uses biblical reference like where, I don't actually know where this is in the Bible. If you plant, is it in the Bible? If you plant a fig tree, don't expect to find grapes or something, some other kind of
Jesus,
fruit.
No one plants a fig tree and looks for, or no, it's not. It's plants something else and looks for
figs.
Figs, or maybe it's fig tree and looks for grapes. It could be that. It's Jesus.
Okay. Up. Yes.
Yeah.
It was like that sounds like the Bible, but maybe it's another proverb from something else.
No, it's the Bible. I love how you can always make use of the author of the Hebrews if you wanted, if you don't know where it is in the Bible, but you know it's in the Bible. Instead of saying, as the good book says.
Oh, there you go.
You can say, as someone said somewhere.
That's right. An uncle once
by
said.
then he means the Holy Scriptures of old. He means the Old Testament. It's great. I forget what that is. It's like chapter 4 or 6 or something like that. But
So, yeah. So an uncle once said that.
Oh, yeah, the uncle. Hey, they don't know that joke. Yeah. Nobody knows that joke.
So, what is it? It's in Hebrew thought.
It's just Hebrew word. Is the
word
etymology
for people or
of the word,
crowd.
The word people, crowd,
That's right. It is the same as you would use for uncle or is it distant relation or just uncle? Father, it's paternal uncle.
Yeah, it's so narrow. It's like this narrow little word. It's not just uncle. Like uncle's too broad and too common, right?
Yeah.
It's a very specific uncle. And we care so much about family that like every uncle, or at least the first uncle on the paternal side, like has his own name, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like Uma or something, right? That we just made up. It's his title that we use for the word people.
Yeah.
As well.
Which makes total sense.
He's kind of the head of everyone who's not your family.
Yeah.
Like if something's wrong in the community and someone's got to go talk to you, it's going to come through your dad's brother. Your dad's brother, right? So there's something really, really cool about that. And we were driving on that at Bible study at St. Paul Lutheran Church.
Yeah.
Midweek prayer service, Bible study, and homeschool co-op.
That's right. So
have you considered living in Rockford, Illinois? Homeschool Lutheran? Have you? Anyway,
I'd love to have you.
Go on.
I was thinking about what was being said by this Christian leader. And he was saying that we shouldn't be surprised by where our country has come because we need to look at who is educating us and what they're using to educate. So like, why do we send our kids away, or why would you? Here's an example that was used. Why would you send your child away to law school and then be surprised when you get a lawyer?
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
what?
How'd that happen? And so it gave me pause as I was reading through his thoughts and thinking about like his admonition was to, or prompting was to make sure that we're very intentional about how we educate our children. And the stress was on being centered on God's word. And then my brain goes to, I have not made that a very narrow focus or a consuming focus. I feel like I don't sit down with them every day at a certain time and say,
with our kids in our homeschool curriculum.
Yes.
No, we just have consistently striven to read and have them read the Bible over time in seasons of growth and 2 steps forward, 1 back. But this is a good conviction to have right now.
Yeah.
I just don't want you to condemn yourself too hard.
Well, thank you.
It's not as though nothing has been done, but sure. Okay.
And I thought about like, how is it an important thing to make sure my child knows French over God's word?
Yeah.
No,
right,
I think I could, as I've been meditating on the importance of scripture in one's life, in a Christian's life, it's kind of like, you know what? I think you do better to be invested in scripture than some of the other subjects that are stressed. Like it's not just homeschooling.
No.
You know, there was a story that was told to me about a fella in his homeschool co-op, and he's like, and there was this other guy who would ditch his class and come find me so that we could hang out together. He would be ditching class, and I was in my study hall, and he would just come out, homeschool co-op study hall. And
sounds not like a homes. Anyway, go ahead. Go on.
Not at home.
At least.
But
school.
But it's just
school.
It was like, oh my goodness, that's the same thing that you can get at public school or private school or any school. You're not safe, quote unquote, if you're just homeschooling. It's the concept of like, how am I actually teaching my kids at home?
How and what?
And who else is teaching my kids? Because if I homeschool,
that's the important question to me.
And then I'm putting on Disney shows every day, like that Disney show is teaching my child too.
Yep.
So it made me think about Dr. Kuntz and a lot of the intentionality that you have been pulling out of your conversations with him on Brief History of Power and mentioning just throughout the day and so forth. And I thought, oh man, our kids will listen to Taylor Swift's songs sometimes, and they listen to edited versions of her CDs or her albums, but still, like, her worldview is still there.
No, it's kind of rough.
So it's like,
that's one of those weird Christian freedom things that's really, really tough. Like, on the one hand, it's okay to listen to a non-Christian sing words to music.
Right.
On the other hand, Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off a bat live in studio and spitting blood everywhere and live in the concert and like screaming about, Highway to Hell. And I just mixed a few metaphors, but like maybe not, if anything is beautiful, if anything is good, think about such things. Maybe not what that was about. Paul was on to that. Maybe not. Right. So, where's that line?
And it's such a slippery line.
Because you cannot make a law where there is no written law.
Right.
And so it calls for discernment, and it calls for the Christian to recognize whether or not what he's doing is pumping lies into his body or not. And I was thinking this as I heard the kids listen to, I believe do the kids call her Swifty these days? Is that what she's...
No, they changed it.
They changed
Tay-Tay.
Tay-Tay. Oh, heavens. How does one keep up with them?
I don't know.
I remember whatever she was singing about, I'm like listening and I wasn't really excited that this was my kitchen. Right.
Yeah.
But I also want the children to learn to discern. And we've done that, and we do that. Like, it's not just like anything goes on the radio in the home either. And so we have worldview discussions and stuff. So it's it's really a fine line.
It's tricky because let me just talk about Taylor Swift for a minute.
Yeah.
Because she's very real about what she talks about in her songs.
Okay.
Like, the emotion or the place that she's coming from is a real place. So you invest time in a relationship and then the relationship fizzles apart and you're angry. And so then she talks about it. And my trouble has been over the years that sometimes I'm going along and I have one emotion and then I listen to her emotion and then suddenly my emotion is changing and I'm becoming less at peace and more like taking on that angst.
Yeah, sure.
And so it just changes my, and that's in a moment.
Music is emotional manipulation, and it is to some extent unavoidable that you will be in a place where you are hearing music or even other audio inputs and not psychologically impacted by them to the level of emotion. I mean, there is a reason that. What could I use as an example? There's lots of them, but like, why do commercials use music? Why? Right? It is to manipulate you. That is why, to get behind you and like plant ideas in your head, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just movies that do this, although when you combine the blue light, moving image, dopamine, all that, with the audio, music, kind of soothing the primal person feel that audio gives. And then you start adding in these words that people end up singing without thinking about, kind of putting, it's not surprising at the very least that, maybe don't walk away and like have all the same thoughts, but you do walk away and you have a lot of the same emotions, right? So this is like Dr. Kuntz's entire argument against movies that he made recently. I think it may have come out in like the episode from yesterday. which is more about, so let's pick somebody. I guess we're talking about Taylor Swift already, right? Mm-hmm. Let's assume it's Taylor Swift, right? Do you really want to have Taylor Swift come into your home once, twice a week for 15 minutes, not to be your friend? She's not going to come in and like get to know you or anything. She's just going to come in. She's going to leave her soul there. Right? Do you want to have someone come in and spiritually guide you for 5 minutes, 7 minutes? With the movie, he said 2 hours. So you got this this individual who's known for various things. His worldview is known. You can track his life. You can see that 3 divorces and all this. Do you really want that soul making you dream for 2 hours this weekend? Like, what are you doing with your time?
Yeah. What
are you doing with your time? But the other side of it is when like, oh my goodness, I'm not using every minute perfectly to serve Jesus forever. Like you're under a pressure there that grace does not demand of you, right? And so where is that line? And that line does have to be what Paul's going to call walking by the Spirit, which is going to be seeking to discern where is the line for you today, right? Where do I draw these lines for me today according to my need for peace and according to my need for knowledge, understanding, right? Or for my need to not be lied to again, right? So for me, I'm just further and further away from any inputs in the ears because I'm just tired of having to think about it. I'd rather kind of work on my own thoughts. And, sometimes when I walk the dog, I'll throw some music on. And there's a new Dan Carlin podcast that I've got maybe 30 minutes into. But a lot of times I start and then I'm out there and I'm just like, you know what? What do I need to hear anything for right now? Why more? Why more? But if you're going to have more, right? Don't you want it to be things that would, when you hear Paul say, if anything is beautiful, if anything is noteworthy, if anything is worthy of praise, think on such things. Well, use that a little bit to assess. Like, is this thing praiseworthy? Or is it just good? And there is maybe a little difference there. By good, I'm looking like an American good, right? Fun. Is it just fun? And it's not that there's never a place for that or just fun is sin. No. But like, well, how good is just fun? Like, is that really praiseworthy? And wouldn't you rather spend most of your waking hours pursuing praiseworthy things? And that's as simple anyway. I don't want to get off pushing on people, but like that's as simple as cleaning up your flood. I mean that's a praiseworthy thing. You're doing what must be done today, even though it means you got nothing done today, right?
Right.
Bring it all home there.
Yeah. So that and his point was to just be more diligent and careful in how we educate our kids, because that's going to set the trajectory for any community. What
you put in is what's going to be.
And
right?
So for us to be sitting here and surprised that that things are going the way they are in the government or in society, or it's like...
Someone said it to me at church this weekend. An older lady mentioned something, and it was along those lines. And I said, they've been telling us in the schools for 60 plus years that they were all monkeys.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that. Mm-hmm.
Like, what did you think they were going to do? You thought they were just all going to be better? Act more highly, get more high-minded? No. They can turn into monkeys. That's what they act like, what they want. That's it. What I want. That's it. Mm-hmm. Fleshly man. And so, why are you surprised? What I like about the comment that starts this all off is just the understanding that is, if you really want to make a change, then the answer is going to be educating kids. Mm-hmm. Starting with yours, but anywhere where you're doing education, if you are only mirroring what the beast is doing, at this point, you're not really educating at all. You're participating in the decline. So to recognize that, I know there are schools out there, grade schools, high schools, that, and not just Lutheran ones, that are really trying to stand apart and hold on to something that is not a mere reflection of the beast. But that is where the battle's got to be fought. I mean, this is the whole political thing too. Right? Parents all over the nation are recognizing that you can't ignore the school board. You got to go deal with the public school board, or they're going to do whatever the elites are telling them to do, paying them to do, pressuring them to do. So the schools are where the battlefield is. I believe the worst man to ever live, according to the 21st and 20th century, said, give me the textbooks and I shall control the world. And he got a long way before he didn't control the world, the guy who said that. So it's not rocket science, really. Like if every time you're teaching Johnny to read about Johnny running, he is like running to a rainbow of happy unicorns that is my favorite gender, pick one. Like eventually 3 out of every 10 Johnnies at least is going to believe that. If not 8 out of every 10 Johnnies is going to believe that. We're not supremely independent natively as beings. We rely on each other far too much for simple herd knowledge. Much of that psychological and emotional herd knowledge that if you get too far outside of that, the herd starts to buck at you. So that's why it's challenging to do it differently. It's because the herd doesn't like when you're not doing it the way they're doing it.
Right.
Yeah. Outsider. What are you doing that for? Being all weird and stuff. Oh, yeah. Running from that other thing that's coming at us right now.
Yeah.
What direction do you want to go? Yeah.
So standing up tall in the midst of a storm is not easy, but it is what we as Christians can do because we have that solid foundation that we can stand on.
Yeah. I think that's good. You made me think of King Lear for a second. He's shouting at the storm, but he's not standing tall. He's actually losing his mind a little bit.
Well, it was interesting because I was reading the thoughts of this Christian leader, and then I went to the kitchen to start supper, and I turned on 2 Kings chapter 22, and that's about Josiah finding through the high priest finding God's word again.
Yeah, the Reformation. The first Reformation.
Yeah. And it was so fitting how, and then his reaction is extreme and not just like, oh, well, that was nice.
Isn't he rent his clothes?
Yeah. He goes the whole 9 yards. And so as I think about it, my prayer is that I might have that extreme of a desire to respond when it's made clear to me that there's a different way.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
Rather than just a passive response.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're supposed to when we read the Old Testament curses and blessings about what God will do to those who reject his word and what God will do to those who trust his word, I think we're supposed to believe them. And I don't just mean in some sort of like, yes, the Bible teaches this and we're all going to heaven way. I mean, in some ways, a contemporary, well, how is your sojourn through the wilderness gonna look way? Are you trusting the word? It's going to be straight. It's going to be upright. It's going to be filled with peace and joy. I mean, you might get crucified, but you're going to be kind of praying to Jesus, saying, "Father, forgive them." And you really actually asked for this moment. You were ready for it. You've been waiting for this, right? This is the adventure. And if it's not that, it's something else, right? It's living a long life of establishing a Christian family for several generations and building communities with support structures and businesses that build a market that, have honest scales. By the way, I'm going to forget where I was, but getting the car wash tonight was pretty cool. Our favorite car wash. I'm sitting there and kind of waiting a long line because it was sunny.
Oh, yeah.
Not tonight, this afternoon, but evening. Beautiful February day. What was it, 40? I don't know. It was beautiful
I don't know,
day.
but very sunny. After having a month of
so
no
sitting
sun.
in traffic, waiting for the car wash to open up, and their little sign that is a digital. I look over, if the sun sets you free.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first thing I saw is if the sun sets you free, and I had Crowder going. Oh man, it was great. We were not really talking about the Jeep and music. You lost it too.
Well, let's see. Yeah, because you were just beginning to talk about something, and so I don't even know what you were going to say.
Well, what were you saying last?
I had talked about how as Christians we can stand firm against a storm.
Right.
Then do we move on to other things? Did I
No,
actually
this
say
is-
anything after that?
This is standing firm, kings, believing in the promises and the curses.
Right.
And so I tangented into the Jeep, but recognizing that when you're reading those passages in the Bible that say, I'm going to pour out my wrath on people who do this, and you're like, wow, that's what we're doing. It isn't like, well, thank goodness that the Lutheran church is around so we can just keep doing things fine, watch some more TV and play sports. It'll all be okay, guys. Like, no. We're supposed to do what Josiah did and actually realize that without the integrity of virtue in any civilization, God's wrath is going to be poured out on that civilization through the sin of that civilization collapsing inwardly upon itself in violence and hate and distrust and an inability to communicate and all sorts of stuff that we're watching happen around us right now. And so again, firmly believe we shouldn't just believe these curses and blessings of the Old Testament. We should expect them. And for that reason, when you see it as bad as it is, then you want to react like Josiah, then start believing the blessings, right? That the plague shall not touch your tent, right? Which again doesn't mean that no one's ever going to die, but it does mean what I said before, that you're going to walk a straight path with an upright head and a heart that's confident because it has the integrity of being baptized into the grace of Christ, right? So, yeah.
I don't know if this is just a Lutheran thing, but growing up in the Lutheran church, I remember thinking that, hearing it repeated over and over again, that I cannot use the Bible stories as moral tales. Like, they're more than that.
They're more than that.
And I cannot just try to find myself in them. And so, but then I never was told clearly, like, what I am supposed to do with David. And so it was easy to just be like, well, that was a nice story. So when you read about God's wrath, I guess what I'm trying to say is I can empathize with people's confusion when they open the Bible and they read these
right.
accounts of the saints of old and what they went through and
right.
what we'll be able to talk to them about in paradise, having gone through.
Right.
I think that I can empathize with their like, okay, well, I don't really know what to do with that. And then just kind of putting it to the side and moving on with my day.
Yeah. Right.
And not actually applying any of it to my day.
Because reading the whole Bible is probably a mistake for most people.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that most people are not prepared to read Leviticus.
I see.
They're just not ready. They're not gonna get it. They're not gonna be able to get it. They're not gonna want to get it. They're gonna be done before they start. Maybe the stories. Oh, that one chapter. Okay, but even then they're gonna be like, wow, that was a story about how Aaron's kids just got killed, and then Moses kind of got mad at Aaron. And then Aaron's like, haven't I done enough? What more can I do? Right? And they're like, so like, what am I going to do with that as I then turn to portals of prayer and then go off to my kind of normal American life, right? How do I apply it? What do I learn? So to enter into the whole Bible at once is kind of like weird. The Bible is not a book. It's the book of books. And it is filled with books that then have a different accessibility to them depending on your level of capacity, your level of knowledge in the faith. And so if you're brand new to any of this Bible reading, not to Christianity, but yeah, maybe that too, but to Bible reading, it's don't go to Genesis. Like just read Matthew, read John, like 4 or 5 times, right? Read Romans like 3 times, read Ephesians like 10 times, do that, right? And sonsofsolomon.net, start praying the Psalms and reading the Proverbs, and again, or just read that over and over and over again, which is kind of the idea. Yeah. So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
But your point was kind of cool.
Well, I was talking about how growing up Lutheran, I was expanding upon a comment that you had made. Like as Lutherans, we just don't take it seriously.
Right.
It's hard to, because
Right.
we're not really taught. We're taught what it isn't, but we're not really taught what it is. And then in the mix of it, we're taught that, well, Jesus took care of all of that, so you're fine.
Right. Right.
And so you get these really
that's what it was.
apathetic, passive people.
So, because I know, I mean, you've sat at my feet long enough in terms of, as your teacher, right? That I've taught you to look for Christ as a typological reality in Old Testament stories. So David goes to fight Goliath. This is Jesus going to defeat Satan. And you can make all sorts of ties to Easter and the defeating of the grave that are there.
Right.
Like
That's
these
a little bit
overlaps.
atypical, though, in the congregations that I've been in.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
In my life.
Yeah, sure.
So, yes, it's true.
But it is the thing that I think most conservative Lutheran pastors in the Missouri Synod would try to say to you today. What I would challenge from kind of what maybe you got with that or got from me in the past was that's not the only thing to take from the story. That's the entry point. Jesus is the entry point to the Bible. He's its beginning. He's its end. Like his telos, the completion, the culmination is maybe a better way to say it. The culmination, which he's pulled you through it into himself, and he is all in all, right? And so in that way, where you begin with the story of David, the shepherd boy, as the prototype and prophecy of Jesus, the 12-year-old from Nazareth, who will be the king of the Jews. You move from there into David being the great-great-great-grandsire of this Jesus, right? So you have this historical reality that's taking place, the fulfillment. You have the history. And then from there, you have the fact that you have been baptized into Jesus Christ. And so if Jesus Christ is a fulfillment of David's life, guess what? So are you. And so how about at least aspire to whatever David is that's good? Like, love that, because that's actually what God's promised you. Like, literally, it's the very same promises. How about you learn from what he didn't see and what he did wrong, right? Find wisdom and discernment in his error so you don't have to make the error again. This is Solomon's Ecclesiastes. He's like, I got the most wisdom there ever was, and here's what I did. I became a fool knowing I couldn't finally end there. I had a promise. I had to be wise. So eventually I had to come out of the folly. So I went in, I came out. Let me tell you all about it. Don't do it. Entering the Bible in such a way so as to find your story is fulfilled by Jesus at the cross, historically, kind of majestically and spiritually, once for all, even emotionally, it's all there in him. And now that's coming forward to you, making all of his story your own, not so that you would usurp him, but so that you would reflect him. You would reflect him as a member of his body again. And that this is not something you need to achieve. It's something that he has promised he will do. And so when you come to these stories, again, first off, just be inspired by whoever in them, you're like, that guy's awesome. I want to be like that guy. Like, yes, be like that guy. How? Jesus, can I be like that guy? Kind of starts there. How much do you know about Othniel? Othniel, there's not a lot there. There's like 2-3 things. I would be like Othniel. Maybe the rest of his life was terrible. I don't know. Jesus, make me like Othniel in the right way, right? He inspires me and all that. Lion of God. Yeah. But that's a little different than like, hey kids, let's do the morality play of David and Bathsheba again and learn how not to, do this. Like, if every story is just about what you're afraid the kids are going to do and you need to stop them from doing it, right? That's not going to function the same way as you're a member of the body of Christ, born again to a living hope. And these are your heroes of old who lived through this, did this for you. We're given this the way you're given it now. They're the emblems of what you have. It was promised to the Jews, but now it's promised to all nations, and the Spirit has gone out. All tribes, all kingdoms called to him, all families of the earth, given the tongue to praise his name, right? That doesn't mean like, and oh, by the way, it's all fatalistic and it's all worked out and you have no control over anything whatsoever. Don't bother praying whatsoever. God's got it planned. No. It's back to Old Testament. Like there are curses, there are blessings. What's going on around you? Speak one of them. Hey, learn to call them on Christ, because those who call on him, he will answer. He's your God right now. And that for me has been one of the hardest wake-up calls. 2020 wake-up call has been like to realize just how much the God who I definitely believed in, definitely preached, definitely prayed to, was still just sort of a story.
Right. And I think
one of many.
I don't think you're alone. And that was kind of my point. Until he becomes real, living, then it's just like, well, okay. Why would I change? Why would I go against the tide? That would be hard.
But it starts with something like seeing that Josiah's repentance is emblematic of what we are all to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like every day, the word of God comes out from the darkness where it was. It comes to me. I find it again, and I am to pay obeisance. I'm to fall before it in reception of this, right? And to know that I have no power to bring it about myself, but to also believe that it comes with the power to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's just kind of riffing on Josiah metaphorically. Yeah. I mean, all those stories, and there's so much, they are about wisdom. They're about seeing the distinction between good and evil, between righteous and what would I pair with that? Righteous and iniquitous, and really between faith, between trust, and unbelief, or the language that Saul has been giving me this week, the distinction between the fear of God and the fear of man.
Yeah.
That's David and Saul right there.
That was really big. You kind of pointed that out a little bit on Wednesday at the Bible study.
Yeah, the uncle talk. It's
right.
Saul who's like, I was afraid of my uncle.
Yeah. And it was so empowering to hear you make that distinction or reveal that to us, because it well, at least for me, it gave me such freedom. It's like, oh, wow. Well, you know what? I have God's word. I don't like his promise that I don't have to fear other men. And so all of this stuff that all the pressures that I feel to be or do certain things from other men, I can just drop them. Be like,
it's nice, huh?
I don't even.
At least
have to
in that
carry
moment. At least in that moment, like it can creep on you again, but
and it will.
Yeah. But in that moment, when you drop it all, you're kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
I was talking with our brother Adam Kuntz again after the show, just briefly, recording Thursday, and we were talking about something, and I won't get into all the details of all of it, but it was extended and political and all this stuff, and somehow between us, the commentary just kind of came out like, all of this is about trying to hold on to all of this money that if Jesus wants to take it away, we can't stop him, and he could just give it all to us again anyway. So why do we care so much? And what a freeing thing to be like, oh, he can take away our colleges and universities if he wants to, and he can give us more if he wants to. So maybe we should stop fighting each other over trying to save them.
Yes, that actually leads beautifully into something else that I was contemplating. And the idea is how to, in a Christian community, in a congregation, like how do you do business, quote unquote, with your brothers in Christ?
Very carefully.
And that was the advice. It was like, if you cannot go the extra mile to actually pay them 10% more, don't do it. Like, don't accept service from them. So, and in importance, it goes up as far as like what kind of a vocation they have. It was looking at vocation and how the vocations intermix in a community. So like if you know a guy who's good with tools, don't expect him to fix your door for free.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Reimburse him or be ready though to pay more. So oftentimes we're like, hey, I know somebody at church who can do this thing that I need. I'll go to them, and we're looking for a deal. And the point that was made was we should not look for a deal. If we're going to do that, go deal with the pagans, because that's how they're working their system.
Yeah.
If you
look to share,
go to somebody in the community, absolutely look to share or give more. And so if somebody works well with tools, give them so much, but then the more prestigious they are, give them more. And that was an interesting distinction too. I don't know if that's even necessary in all
I don't know
scenarios.
I mean, it's just generosity, leading with generosity and being a culture in which generosity is expected. But Paul says it one way, like, if you're going to get all up in it, why don't you outdo each other in like showing honor to each other? See who can be the best at that.
Absolutely.
Which is, that is where sanctimony comes from, probably in the LCMS. But anyway.
It embarrassingly, like, I have never thought about that. So like if I know somebody who is a waiter and I go to the restaurant where they work, like, don't give them less of a tip just because they're your buddy. And, it's like, no, you give them more of a tip.
That's interesting. Because like in waitstaff culture, like that is how it is. Like if you're a waiter, you just tip better.
And so you apply that to everything. And I just don't know that, I mean, we have people help us all the time. And I thank them and I send them, a thank you card, or
we're also in that weird
can.
Position where we're their shepherd family, and so
sure, that makes sense.
In kind giving and expressions of gratitude to the Levite is acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of in a unique role in that way.
And you must have said that to me before, because I was like, why do I
Pastor's got to get
feel
used to
like
accepting
it's
gifts.
inappropriate to give back?
Right.
But then to be generous, if I do have extra eggs,
sure,
then to just be willing to be like, hey,
just share.
Here you go. Have them.
It's here for now. Share today.
I have extra eggs. Right.
Yeah, it's here for now. Share today. Agreed.
So
boil them if you need to.
Right.
So just let that one go right by.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and you had talked about Kuhn's mentioning community and your brethren. And and that made me think of, this is how you're supposed to use or deal with in business with your brother.
Right. I think the advice that your resource was giving, that probably is the most succinct, right? How I'm at church. There's a guy at church. He works in an industry that I need something from, right? How do I approach this? I approach this looking to give him the better deal. That's it. That's it. I'm trying to not get a deal.
Absolutely.
I am trying to get good work. Right. There's a difference, okay?
Right.
I'm not trying to get cheated. I'm not trying to get shoddy labor.
Yeah.
I'm just not trying to get a deal either.
Right. And that was the other side of things. He said, he was talking about how if you do business with somebody in your community or congregation, and then they do bad labor, quietly don't ask them to do it again. But if somebody asks for, if he approaches you and says, what do you think? Be very honest. And then if somebody else asks you, be kindly honest. he installed my cabinets upside down. I'm not going to go to him for that again.
Right.
And just leave it at that. You don't have to say anything
and
more.
You shouldn't, or that, or
nope, I'm not going to go ask him.
There ought
again
to be a
that.
law.
Right. Yeah. So that was interesting. It's funny, these different things that come across my plate that I can meditate on. I was actually meditating on it while I was taking the water out of our carpet.
Oh, yes.
The soil here has reached its, what is that? It's called, it's like flood level.
Yeah. And
we had a bunch of snow, like a foot of snow,
go down
maybe
real fast,
melt in maybe 2 days, 1.5 days,
including stuff on the roofs, and then we had it backed up,
and then it had rained.
Yeah, and then it rained
on top of it. So it's soggy here.
It's a little damp downstairs.
So anyhow, while you're sitting there holding the machine over the wet spot, moving it very slowly,
I was impressed.
I decided, well, I could read while I'm doing this. So I did.
So it's just like they sell you the vacuum cleaner where you're like, you're pushing it and all at once.
I was doing it.
Did you like kick your heel up?
No, I didn't. I actually, it was very funny. A very fun scenario, but.
Well, and you also did some of that work today for us over at the Hebron Collegium, the Gap Year Bible School for Men here in Lakewood Hills, Illinois, where oratio, meditatio, and tentatio, that's the Psalms, Proverbs, and Jiu-Jitsu, will help you form your future in the semi-monastic boot camp for Christian living. Cowards and slackers need not apply. HebronCollegium.com. Stop the Witness is brought to you by the Hebron Collegium, and we are always under construction here at Hebron. More good stuff, man. They're reading a variety of really good books this week. Of course, they're all going to slip away from my head. There was
one that was like the fallacy. One was reading books about different fallacies.
Yeah. Logical arguments. Yeah.
He was like disappointed in the book.
Yeah, it's mediocre.
And I was like, why? And so I started reading through, and one of the examples was like, Christians like to say that evolution is wrong because people did not come from monkeys, when in fact a Darwinist does not believe that people came from monkeys. They just evolved from the same source or the same ancestor. And I was just like, I never even thought to be that precise in speaking to a Darwinist. Not that I do it every day. Like I don't.
Well, that's the thing. It's a sophistry. The whole argument is a sophistry. It's a wordplay.
Yeah.
Well, I never said we came from monkeys. I just said we had similar ancestors as monkeys. Oh, were they like monkeys? Yeah, and like men. So monkey men, right? So we came from monkeys. Like it's a stupid argument that makes them sound really kind of smart as they dodge the implications of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Monkeys came from monkey men and we came from monkey men, whatever. Like you can splice that here if you want. What you're saying is that death did not enter the world through Adam.
Exactly.
And what you're saying is that man is just another animal. And what you're saying is that death is the way by which Mother Nature or the Big Bang creates order out of chaos. Yeah. And what you're saying is a whole bunch of stuff that I think is psychologically insane and leads to depression and all sorts of stuff like that. And so, like, you can go ahead and say how I'm not really understanding your argument because I said monkeys. But, like, again, it's a sophistry. Like, at some point, just get off the playing field with those guys.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. I mean,
just get off the playing
field.
It's
a waste of time.
Yeah, a little bit.
So that was one of the books that was being read that I know of. And then I don't know if this was last week or this week.
But that book, nonetheless, does a pretty okay job of laying out like kind of classic logical arguments, even though it's incredibly biased in its examples. Yeah. Written by a Google engineer and on purpose, kind of down there to test and, challenge. Because you need logical arguments is good, but then like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah. It was amazing to read through and be like, oh, yeah, I see. That is so so backwards that somebody would say, try to prove that F equals A plus B. Like there's no F in A plus, like you don't.
I don't know. That one's over me. I have to look at that one again.
Crazy. crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
logic rules they are crazy. They are like math. They're like algebra a little bit.
I know that another guy at one point was reading, or another time, someone was reading Dracula, and someone was reading Every Man's Battle.
Yeah, that was last week.
Oh, that was
we
last
went through
week.
those last week, but
Okay.
there were a whole bunch new ones I got yesterday because 15 more
Yeah.
every Thursday. And it's fun. Like the first 45 minutes of class is just me asking about each book, and they talk, and then we dig into, questions from all the Bible chapters that they're reading. And so we're pushing on Saul quite a bit. And I don't know. There was so much last night. We got into at least 3 different sections, and anyway, Hebron Collegium, check it out. Yeah, it's good. Shaolin Lutheranism. That's the other way to think of it now.
What is that? What's the first word that you said? Lutheranism was in there.
Shaolin.
Shaolin. Okay.
So Shaolin monks are these kind of famous Buddhist monks with their orange robes that do things like karate and kung fu and like they'll sleep on nails and all this stuff, right? And so there's just this mythology, mystical juju feel about the Shaolin monks, that they're all like they're monks, but like if you fought one, like you kick your butt because he's a monk that does Shaolin stuff, right? Kung fu. And so, why not found Shaolin Lutheranism by, studying Psalms, Proverbs, and Jiu-Jitsu together for a year as a brotherhood that's going to go out and, change the world. Why not? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a good thing.
It has been a good thing. I agree. Continuing to learn too. What a process of personal development it really has been for us.
Yes.
As a couple, could have broken us as I look back at it.
Yep, it could have.
Yeah.
But it didn't. God be praised.
Hallelujah.
And that's one of the things that I had thought was so attractive about the fixer-upper couple, Chip and Joanna Gaines. And now they have a line of products that they sell at Target. And they have a magazine called Magnolia. They have expanded their properties, blah, blah, blah. But what inspired me about their story was that they did it together. And their marriage was always a part of it. It was, how can we build something together as we're building each other up? And so, it was in my life at the right time to inspire me to and another Christian actually pushed me in that direction. It was Rebecca St. James.
Wow.
Yeah. Blast from the past.
I know.
Yeah, so she had a podcast for a hot 5 seconds.
Right.
And she asked her mother, who, like, their family, the reason Rebecca and her brother became singers is because their family went through some really hard times. And they needed to support their family through song. Their father was a producer, but he lost all of his clients for some reason. And so the family came to America, and that's where, from Australia.
Okay. And
that's where Rebecca then started to support the family by singing.
Wow.
And her brother did as well. But, so she was talking to her mother about marriage and how they had been together for so long and gone through such hard times. And she was like, what's the secret? And the answer was to sow into your marriage. It's a very evangelical Baptist way.
You've shared this before, though. It's not bad. It's not bad.
But as I sat and contemplated, okay, because they didn't really give a definition. They just threw that out there like I was supposed to know the lingo.
Right.
I'm like, whoa, I totally don't know. Now I understand what people feel like when they come to the Lutheran church for the first time. And we
Do you
drop
believe
our
in objective
jargon.
justification or subjective justification? Hi, my name's Bob. Yeah. Will you come to men's club?
Right. So So I started to think about like, what do you do as you sow seed, and what does that look like? What does it mean biblically? What does it mean to sow? SOW. And so here we are.
Yeah.
Not because of me, but that was from my perspective. What I wanted to put into it was,
For Hebron, you mean?
For Hebron, it was kind of an interesting scenario because us doing Stop the White Noise and Hebron really overlapped quite a bit. And sprang up around each other simultaneously. It didn't, obviously it wasn't in the show. Hebron wasn't in the show at the beginning.
To be fair, we weren't looking.
In our thoughts.
We weren't looking. I was not looking to found a retreat center for spiritual growth and development of manhood, Christian manhood. I was looking to do a podcast with you called Stop the White Noise, pre-2020 even.
Yep.
But then the capacity to start the school, the impetus to consider what I could do if I had funding and enough to do something, start something, that all then just kind of fell out of the sky on us, right? And it's like, what do? You open your mouth and I will fill it and all this. So I guess I better take this and then, pray fervently and try to do real good with it, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, there's so many ways in which I think that it's good for many. It's good for all what we're trying to do in the Lakewood Hills, Rockford area. Because it's building Christian families on the Word of God, right? Rightly distinguished, law and gospel, word and sacrament, in near enough proximity to each other that we can, see each other more than an hour on Sundays, and believe that something good is going to come out of that, and that a school is a good thing to have at the center of such a community, right? Market be good too, but that'd be further down the road. So
well, and I remember the day that you walked around the lake with me. And you said, are you really in? Meaning, like, am I really going to be all in on Hebron and the concept? Because I was very excited about it. But you had a very serious talk about what it meant. Like, it's not just going to be this... yay, we're happy with it and it's going to be fine. It's going to be a real big time sink and investment in the family and and take its toll on us as a couple. And you said you're not going to be able to just be into it for a minute and then go on to other hobbies. Are you sure you're in? And it was kind of a moment of truth, but I was, and I couldn't see any reason why I wouldn't want to be. So we just moved forward with it. And I'm really glad that we did.
Yeah. That continues to develop and grow into something that it's already special, I think, but has potential to be game changing for individual Christian lives, for the Christian church in America. For Lutheranism in America, particularly.
It's been an interesting roundabout answer to some of my prayers as I've studied the concept of submission and respect in marriage, and how a wife does that actually. It's one thing to be like, yeah, that sounds good. But then how do we put it into practice on our worst days? And how do we put it into practice on our best days? And recently I've realized that something that people have talked about in books that I've read, and on podcasts that I've listened to about the matter of roles in the marriage, but the idea is that the wife supporting her husband, it doesn't just, like, I don't just do lip service to you and say, oh, yes, yes, hun, and then walk away and have my own thoughts or grumble about it. But in actuality, I use my respect of you, my trust in you, to turn others to look towards you for leadership. And in so doing that, I can create a following for you in your children, in your family, in your community around you. Or flip side,
you can tear me down.
I can turn rebels.
Yep.
Like I can create rebels under your authority.
Truth.
Yeah, and it was kind of an eye-opening moment and extreme answer to prayer. When I realized how, I mean, it seems silly. It seems like, duh. But I think in our culture, we are so individualistic that we think of ourselves like there's this innate nature to just build myself up and make other people around me look less. So if I'm in a group, then I'm not going to make the other people in my group look less, but I'll point out how somebody who's not in the group is lower so that I can elevate myself. And that's taught to us through media. Like it's taught through commercials.
Yeah, it's pretty
through
natural. I think we do it no matter what. But then, yeah, the extremity of it right now, and
it's the
freedom,
American ethos to just be extremely disrespectful to everybody, not just authority. It's like you disrespect or backstab your friends. Yeah, and we're all just working for ourselves. We're not actually on the same team with anybody, it would seem. So I was given an opportunity to see this and then teach the children how to do this in their own scenarios, where if you see somebody who's questioning the authority, you can then turn the conversation or the questioning towards the respect and the trust that the group should have, just by saying, oh, but well, he's always got a plan, or we know that his trajectory is seeing all things, so we don't have to worry about how it's going to turn out.
Or you just, maybe we should ask, that's usually a good thing. Why don't we go ask?
Yeah.
See if the person who currently is exercising the gavel has had a thought about this yet or not. And because maybe he's got an agenda, it's all planned out. It's step 5, right? Maybe he's never thought of it. And he's like, thank you for bringing that up. Where there are many counselors, the plans succeed. Where there's no counsel, the people fall. So, yeah, I think. The fine line is, when is the time when someone has come to you because they need help with the authority, and the authority is in fact needing to be stopped, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Or needing to be dealt with, defended against. It's a fine line. I'm really grateful though. Like generally in marriage, I think the thing that a wife can do is inspire the children to want to follow their father, and if the father is incapable of fulfilling that role, well, it's not the wife's job to prove it. Like instead she might, strive to help him. And if she thinks he's a good for nothing, maybe she shouldn't have been so bold and pretentious about being a feminist and only marrying a weak man. Not that that's the only way it happens, but common enough. So I'm grateful for what you're saying. And I think that it's also just kind of good in general that like the best leader on any level is seeking the good of those who follow him.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's trying to do is make good followers so that together they can follow the greater leader who's out there, right? Which ultimately is the Lord.
Well, it's been interesting to take on the Hebron project because in the congregation, there is kind of a ribbing that goes on amongst the men through the pastor's wife to the pastor. And I don't know if that's something that you are aware of.
I guess not.
As a pastor or not, but like there's a joking where it's like, oh, he did this, or look at it at the way he didn't do that. Ha ha ha. And he won't, they like don't ever go to you, they go to me. And so I have the opportunity there to be like, oh, but he remembers this and he did a great sermon.
I think they're playing sort of the happy wife, happy life joke.
Yes, it is. And that's good. Thank you for giving me that. So with the Hebron project that we took on, however, it's not, there's a different culture of man that we're starting to interact with. So typically the happy life, happy wife, happy life comes from a generation that's a little bit above you.
Mm-hmm. Quite a bit.
But then the generation that's a little bit below you is seeking authority. And so they're seeking it, but they're also wanting it for themselves. Like they want to be the authority too.
Right.
And so with the older generation, I didn't feel as I needed to correct as much, but just try to put the best construction on my husband, build him up in their eyes with my response, like not join their folly as best I could, but not wag my finger at them either. I didn't know that would be a good thing as my elders. So, but then with a younger generation, it's a different kind of like antler fight, essentially.
It's a lot more of an antler fight.
And
the older guys aren't trying to antler fight. They're actually they're kind of submitting in a weird way, and they're like recognizing that because they are following me as their pastor, then they want you to be happy so that I'll be happy, because happy wife, happy life. And so they're going to go and make sure you're in charge of me. Ha ha, it's all a game. Ha 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 ha. Right. Is that way you're happy? Because ha ha. And they're doing me a favor. I think that's a little more how it is. The old boys club. Keeping everybody's wives from grumbling too much by letting them do it to us.
It's really confusing.
It is. It is. It's from another time. It's from another place. They didn't think people were monkeys back then. It's just they grew up with such a different world. I'm not calling it good. But
well, but then this Christian leader that I was exposed to, his thought is that they were from a generation where things were very different, but the trajectory was set. And so because the brakes weren't put on in the past, we've ended up here.
Can't put the brakes on the beast. What you trying to do? We ended up here where we're where we've always been. Come out from my people, right? Like, it's just the way it is. Pray for the good of Babylon, and then get out of Egypt. And you got to do both all the time. You said young men are seeking authority. I think this is interesting. What they're seeking is permission, but they need an authority to give it to them.
Right.
What they want is permission.
So Islam is so attractive to young men because of its authority, because of its firm foundation, and it just keeps on going on. it's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
So they want that, but then they also want to be the Pendragon. They want to be the patriarch,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to grow into that position.
Mm-hmm.
And the sooner, the better, in their opinion. And
That is very man. It's good. It's good that we have. Dr. Kuntz was saying that this week is going to be next week's episode. The problem is not that young men have zeal, nor should you try to stop young men from having zeal.
no, you just need to channel
It's important to know that young men are not the only men. Young men really, in their zeal, ought not be in charge. And that old men have their own problems that need to be dealt with as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like how they treat young men and whether they hear their zeal as a real clarion call to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, but the zeal with which the young men are trying to stand back or stand up against the beast now can look a little, let's just call it legalistic. You pick your version of religion that it's going to emulate, but tit for tat and on the line, and everything being about, if we don't do it just this way, and there's only one way to do it, and we all got to do it right now, otherwise it won't work out. And it'd be nice if all of Nineveh repented in 3 days of preaching or something like that, right? But what I think the journey from young man to old man is a little bit is realizing you have enough to do, just keeping yourself in good shape, right? Keeping yourself in line without worrying about everybody else's.
Yeah. So
nakedness.
as a woman, I can feed that spirit of rebellion, or I can divert it to, not just a woman, but a follower of a certain leader.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can do this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're following somebody, then if you hear words that aren't really serious, but that are, leading towards a rebellious spirit, you can either fan that into flame by encouraging it, or you can divert it to the patience and the trust that is needed, and that you're saying, an older man is hoping to instill in the younger man.
Yeah. Or just to the proper authority, right? So like, oh, we're talking about this thing, and someone said, well, have you talked to that person yet?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Well, why are you talking about how bad it is then if you haven't even talked to them yet?
Yeah.
That's weird, right? But that's what we do kind of natively. I want to try to get to a couple questions tonight. This happens Friday nights. You're too valuable to talk to.
Oh.
So we skip all the questions. But I think we can get a couple of these in here. Oh my. I don't know.
You'll get it. You always do.
I don't know. Everything's going weird with
the
our
update
programs. Yeah. You know what? I can't even see it. Oh, and then this thing is behind it. Oh, for pity's sakes, and there it all went away. People watch this show.
If you
they like us. They listen and stuff. Okay, hello. My question. Look at this. I got to do this here.
Dear.
My question is for. What's that say? It says for Lady Meridith. I have no idea how you managed to do all the things you have undertaken with Hebron and the household and still manage to homeschool. Can you share your routine or any wisdom on how you manage homeschooling day to day and how you get started? I'm starting up this coming year. Thank you for sharing the wisdom on that previous show. And I already feel like there aren't enough hours in the day without homeschooling. Any wisdom is very much appreciated. Thank you. And Jesus bless you, Jana. That was probably the worst way to show everybody that. If you're listening, you don't know what happened. But if you're watching, you know.
Thank you, Jana.
You know. If you're watching, you have long known that Jonathan will have moments where it is not professionally operated.
That's okay. I think it's keeping it real.
It's again, being just a pastor of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, I feel like I've done exceptionally well in pretending to be many other things in my life.
Absolutely.
So, why don't you go ahead and take a shot at it?
I am in a different season of life than I once was. Yay. That's really ambiguous. Okay.
It is something that can be said often. This too shall pass.
I am seemingly not bearing children. I am not nursing children. And I have all my children are potty trained and independent readers. So I'm at a different place in my homeschooling experience than somebody who's starting out with tinies. But my encouragement to those of you who are starting out with this daunting word called homeschool and all of the images that come with it, remember you taught your child to talk. You taught them to walk. You actually taught them to eat food, starting with either the breast or the bottle. You have taught them colors or to identify different nouns like the cat or the door. So you have homeschooled and you know how to teach your child because you've taught them all those things. For some people, that homeschooling might look like starting the day with a family meeting and a devotion, and then off we go into the schoolroom. For other people, it might be a lot more casual. And what has helped me over the years is to make sure that teaching the children to read was the primary focus until they got that. Mm-hmm. And with that, they can teach themselves anything. You open the world to them. So reading to my tinies was important. We did a lot of reading together. Now, as they all are independent readers, they do a lot of reading on their own.
Ridiculous amount of reading. Not all of it as valuable as it could be, but ridiculous.
But it's all part of the process of them realizing how much they love to read. And so sometimes we do have to have them, we have to patiently walk with them through the books that they've chosen that we don't like, and we'll talk about it or tell them why we're not going to let them finish it as we talk about it, depending on their answers. So anyway, our goal has always been to create learners. And so that meant give them the tools to learn. So our homeschool at the start was very simple: math and reading. And then catechism had been a huge part of their tiny child life. Now, if I had a newborn, the catechism would be sprinkled in there, but I think that the just pure scripture would be in there a whole lot more. So yeah, because if you read Exodus like every single year, your entire life, I think by the time your church allows you to get confirmed, you're going to know the 10 Commandments twice every year, your entire life.
You only see the 10 Commandments twice a year. I don't know. But no, if you read Exodus every year, once a year, your entire life, you should know Exodus pretty well. Mm-hmm. I would think so. Yeah.
Or so even if you don't know the 10 Commandments, by the time you're ready to, go to confirmation, you know where to find it in Scripture. You'd be like, oh wait, I know where that is.
So like this is where we just really have lost our way. It's not that the other stuff can't be valuable, but seriously, Hebron Collegium, 12 chapters of the Bible a day. Mm-hmm. And what else? No, really, really, really. What if you took time and read 12 chapters of the Bible a day and didn't just read it, didn't get it over with, you actually dug into that thing, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying you have to do Hebron. That's young men living semi-monastic awesomeness. But 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapters a day with your kids.
Yeah.
When they're little, especially reading out loud, you just don't underestimate how dynamically transformative to their world it's going to be. And if they then learn to read from the Bible and then are reading the Bible 3-4 chapters a day with the rest of their homeschool, don't underestimate how dynamically formative, how dynamically formative that is going to be for them intellectually and spiritually and psychologically, all these things. Whereas if you take that out, we got to get algebra, we got to get social sciences, and we got to get geography, and we got to get this, and by the way, there's a Shakespeare class, and have you looked at the Founding Fathers stuff, and let's do the Latin, and but where did the Bible go? Well, we had 30 minutes this morning. Oh, like where you treated it just like everything else, and then tested on it. How's that helping, right? So. But your answer is so key, and just in I don't know, maybe you already thought this, but I remember very vividly in my young zealous man husband kind of way being like, in our school we shall teach them to read and do math. This shall be it, right? And I was avid about that as an idea, not because it wasn't that we couldn't teach them other things. Why not? Let's get a book on colors, or let's get a play with Play-Doh, or fine, whatever. But like, if the child can read on his own and comprehend what it says, he's above probably 85% of the population. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not quoting direct stats of like literacy levels, but I just think that most stats about literacy levels are overemphasizing the capacity of people to pick up a book on, who's who in the Bible, read it, comprehend it, be able to do something with it, pick up a book on electronics, follow the steps on how to put together a circuit board, right? If you can read and comprehend, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And then, if you wait until you're 18 to learn basic arithmetic, it's gonna be harder.
Yeah.
So get that logical math progression in as early as you can. Go as far as you can with it, but don't freak out if they can't handle calculus. It's okay. It'll be fine. You don't have to do it. So
then beyond that, homeschool for me has been just that, homeschool. So we're at home and I'm teaching you how to fold laundry, and you're cooking with me, and you're going to visit shut-ins with me, or you're going to a Bible study with me. Like you're my shadow. Man. I'm teaching you how to grocery shop. We don't homeschool. We home educate. Yeah.
We educate at home.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We educate at home.
If you're looking for a very structured, essentially looking for what a person would do in a brick and mortar school in your home, I'm not your girl. But I don't unschool. Like, I know that I don't fit in with that crowd.
We don't fit in with them at all, although we definitely look like them.
Yeah.
In terms of our day, like if someone were to ask, what's your day look like at Fisk Home Education Center? It looks a lot like unschool, except for that, like after our kids do unschool on their own, then they on their own go to their desk for 4.5 hours and do book work.
Yeah.
And then they stop, and then they go do unschool again. So it's like we're like, hey kids, get it done. You can have unschool. Yeah. Like that's a little bit where it's at too.
So we get to kind of see the end result of our efforts now. We have one who's in like college age.
Well, she's really a senior in high school.
She's a senior.
Finishing her senior year.
I mean, essentially, she's already started
doing
her
AP credits. Think of it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
AP classes.
Well, that's
right?
how you could see it.
Yeah.
But she's created her own curriculum, which is pretty rigorous, and done research from various, like, so if she were to go to a university to study this major that she is interested in, which she's not actually interested in majoring in, she just is interested in this subject, what would the best textbooks be? Like, what would those classes be having their students read? So she took all of those books and then like took the top 5 or the top 10 or whatever it is. So she has a schedule that she's created for herself to get through all of these different books in a certain amount of time.
She's having to slow that down. She shared that with you.
Yeah. She told me that. But the fact that she even did all of that,
created a syllabus for a college level psychology class. Yeah. And began to apply it, and then realized, like, I can't give this enough attention, so I want to do it, but I'm gonna do it slower.
Because essentially, so she was doing. It was like she was majoring in 3 subjects.
I had a good conversation on the way to core with her about credit hours.
Yeah.
And what they look like, and how she was basically trying to do 15 credit hours on top of everything else that she was doing. And let's just push this back to 12.
Because it's like she's also majoring in art and minoring in music at the same. So double major and then a minor.
With a PE class across town.
Yeah.
Right. And a part-time job. No.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there's plenty going on there. But the whole point being, like, we're seeing the fruit of
a learner. She's a lifelong learner.
But where we're starting, and my advice to you is, they need to know how to read. Mm-hmm. They need to know 2 + 2, and you should probably get them through algebra. If they can't get through algebra as a family, you're fine. Just fine. Work on engines, right? Do something like that. That's cool. But algebra is the next level to, like, being a leader. And I don't mean like you have to be able to solve for X to lead the world, but there's a certain logical chess-like reality that level of math is going to give you. So push through that if you can at all costs, and geometry as well, really, if you can find a good book. And then algebra 2 and trig, that's when it really starts to separate. But, like, even with our second, I'm trying to get her competitive nature to go a year more than our first in terms of distance, just because she's shown that she can. Yeah. And I want her to see that she can. But at the end of the day, if they don't finish trig, like, whatever.
So once they've learned to read, then the subjects expand a little bit more because they're on their own.
Yeah.
So the 3rd grade child is doing grammar and history. I think she's doing more like ancient history. And then she does her Bible reading and her, what am I missing? Math. And then they read a classic. And then for writing at that point, it's more like have a pen pal.
Yeah, this is something that was a stroke of genius, whether you did this on purpose or not, because it was only 2 years ago or so. And we were, if there was a weakness in our curriculum, it was on the written portion of the exam, right? Like we weren't giving as much attention to, hey, kids, write 3-paragraph essays, because really, we don't want to bore everybody all the time. And I write 3-paragraph essays, like, constantly, so it's a useful skill. But, like, how are we going to do this in our kind of open world homeschool environment, home education environment that we've tried to create? And I don't know who it was, you or me or whatever, but, like, someone got a letter or something, and we're like, write a letter. And it started to snowball to a point where I was like, did I say it to you? Did you say it to me? Like, forget trying to teach them to write. Just get them to write as many letters as you can. Get them on pen pals.
I think you must have said it to me, because
I said, just get them writing letters, because if they're writing letters from age 8 until age 18, they will be able to communicate anything they want to communicate in writing, which is the point of essays. The point.
Yeah, so then that turned into our 6th grader publishing his own book.
That was fun.
It's super fun. I finally finished editing it.
115 pages.
I have no idea, honestly. It was 11 chapters.
First part in a trilogy, I believe.
No, he told me today, because I finished it and I said, this is a fabulous beginning to your trilogy. I'm so honored that I got to proof this for you.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I've decided it's going to be a chronicle.
What does that mean?
It means there will be more than 9.
Wow. This is exciting.
So So we'll see. I said, you know what? It's going to be really fun to see how you improve over the years. So, so that's what we have done. And, you're finding some fun stuff. I've never seen this.
Well, I'm just sharing, because if you go to RevFisk.com, You can see my post yesterday updating on Earth's progress. A little bit of Slipbox stuff too, but you can see the pictures of my Gadgeteer, which is a tool for tracking.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Like in my fiction book, I don't know. I'm concerned by the time I get to the end, I might forget the beginning a little bit, especially when it comes to like the name of the
grocery store needs to be consistent.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And so how do you track that? And then, I've tried digitally for years and it's always been really frustrating actually. But I made a 3-ring binder. I have in it printed all the text that I have kind of published on Substack at the moment. And then I've gone through and in every single chapter where there is something that is a name or a place or something, I've created a card where they're just kind of listed there in the order of appearance in that chapter. And in that chapter, they're highlighted with a little bit of color. So you can look at the card, find the name you're looking for, see which chapter it's in, go there, skim to, get and read the whole paragraph around, whatever they are, and quickly remember the lore of your little world that you're building. That is my attempt at an analog Gadgeteer. If you want to look up a Gadgeteer fiction writing concept, you can study this. There are books about Gadgeteers. Most of them deal with digital stuff, however. But that's what, it's not what, I've been working on a lot of different things, but in terms of the writing world, this is where my efforts have been recently. And I share it because, it's exciting to have a son who wants to follow in your footsteps a little bit. And it was interesting also hear him today. Music is a big part of homeschool in our world. More important than a foreign language is the foreign language. It should be the first foreign language the kid learns. Math also, it could be seen as a foreign language. But encouraging the kids to explore and play instruments of any kind, just for fun is really cool. But this kind of gets to it. So I hear him practicing his lesson for his teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say that the zeal was mostly focused on hurrying to be done. Okay. So the tempo was not allegre so much as get it over with a. Yeah. And then it all changed. And he was playing sounds that I can only call creative, and with for varying, crescendo and decrescendo, in fact, and it was nice. And I go up and look, and he's working on an iPad and actually having the iPad thing teach him some songs too. So he's also learning stuff that's like pop music, whatever. But he's doing both hands, right? And it was a completely different experience from like the 20 minutes earlier where it was like, I hate this piece, got to practice it, get it done. Right?
Well, and then he composed 2 pieces last week.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like walk into the workroom. Oh, what are you doing, son? Composing some music. Whoa.
Please hand me my potted wig. I needed to get into the mood.
So anyhow, and this is the boy who, like, boys are different. They're going to be more energetic. And so homeschool looks a lot different for them.
Because he's what, 11?
He's 11.
So like, seriously, your poor boys, until they're 8 or 9, like, don't try too hard. Like, try really hard, do everything you need to do. Just remember that until they're 30, they're not going to listen. And so until they're 10, having them sit still to listen is kind of like corporal punishment. Small bursts. Go to church.
Yeah,
take notes in the sermon. There's places for it, but
that's been a huge part of our homeschool, has been to go to Bible study weekly, weekday Bible study.
Let's come right back to that, just so we don't miss the point about him. Though we have given him a great deal of freedom to explore, not just play. We try to do directed play as much as possible, but not. And we've taught him to read and all this, but an hour and a half, 2 hours a day when he's 8. Like, that's it. Like, in terms of like intellect work, like, you can't expect that kid to do more than that without just driving him into frustration with it. What he needs to do is climb a tree, hammer a nail somewhere, kill a hamster accidentally.
Yeah, well, like I mean, so this is the little
That
one
did not happen, by the way. Yeah.
who was caught, playing with matches once? Like, and I mean, all those things that you're growing up, you hear, don't play with matches. And you're like, why? That's so, I mean, why would anybody play with matches?
My own progeny.
And then, oh, my son is playing with matches. So what do? Well, you have to look up how to build a fire.
Yeah.
And you have to build a fire and you have to keep it going. And we're going to roast not hamburgers.
That was fun.
Hot dogs on it. But it almost took the whole box of matches. He got a few little like singed fingertip episodes.
You were going to talk about making use of the local church and all of its worship and Bible study activities as part of homeschool.
Yeah. My thought has been, and I kind of mentioned it already, like that my children follow me throughout the day, and wherever I go, they go with me, and that's their education. So they will learn to interact with people through just daily activity. I don't have to have them in specific like sports so that they can be socialized. I just take them to the grocery store with me, and then they interact with the people at the grocery store. In polite ways by saying hello and thank you to the clerk who's checking our food out. So that, don't underestimate that part of homeschool, I guess was my point.
No, I think that's huge. It's been so beneficial to our family, to our kids. Church is a second home for them. And I don't think it's just because I'm the pastor there, because we're watching other families kind of have that experience as they make a midweek service a part of their life, as they make midweek Bible study and the homeschool co-op part of their life. And so,
it brings going to adult Bible study is something that creates an adult vocabulary in your child at an early age. So they start to think about scripture in a way that will follow them throughout the rest of their life, so they're growing into their vocabulary rather than growing out of it. Christ is real and dealing with real issues rather than a cartoony story. So that has been kind of something that I've focused on from the time that they were really born.
Mm.
Even though they couldn't understand it, we always took them.
Oh, that's a nice point too. We didn't wait. We talked to them like adults from the beginning, expecting that they would eventually understand what we were saying, not waste any time trying to go coochie-coo. Although, sometimes you tickle them, but when you're dealing with like the kid who's got the food on their face and they're throwing the spoon on the ground, like, no, talk in full sentences to them. Tell them calmly how this is not how we behave, and then treat them like they're going to grow into this. Expect of them that they will communicate. They will learn how to communicate with you very quickly if you try. And I mean, you were able to really pick up on cues even before the baby sign stuff, and so set that bar high for them in terms of. I don't mean like expect much of them. Just don't underestimate them. Give them the credit that they're gonna strive for what you hold out in front of them, and then open the world of words to them, so that they might read the Bible, so that they might pray the Psalms, and so that they might write good things as they study whatever else they find out in the world that God made for them. So. Good question. With just 10 minutes left, why don't we try one more absolute landmine, and we'll see how we do. RevFisk, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about the deaconess program in the LCMS. Oh, you're really going to get me in trouble. I'm going to be in trouble now. Oh, my congregation is considering taking on a deaconess intern. Before this week, I had no knowledge of the history of deaconesses in the church and presumed the position was created as a 20th century nod to the feminist movement. I decided to dig into the history of deaconesses, and was surprised to find it goes back much further than the 20th century. I found that the earliest record of deaconesses as a role goes back to the late 3rd century in a document called the Didascale Apostolorum, although deaconesses today would claim Phoebe from the letter to the Romans to be the first deaconess. I am wondering if you have any kind of insight into the deaconess position and how, if at all, it has changed over time. What are your thoughts on appropriate responsibilities for a deaconess to have in a church? Thank you, and God bless you and your family. Distinguished, with a K. Goodness. So, the position of the deaconess in the history of the church, both West and East, is not like monolithic. It's not the same everywhere, every place. Have there been times in the history of the church where there are women who take on roles of service in the community that are so much entwined with the life of the congregation that the congregation sees fit to recognize them publicly for what they're doing? Say, perchance, a widow whose husband maybe died 70 years ago, and every day she came to church and prayed. You might just go ahead and call her your deaconess for prayer. I mean, you could look at it that way, right? It's kind of how it happened. What deaconess has never been in the history of the church until the 20th century is a career. Because it was never a career. It wasn't about salaries, or it wasn't about what you're going to do when you grow up, right? That's the shift that's taken place, and that's where what we see in anything that is the 20th century version of the deaconess as programs, as educations, and especially as diplomatic degrees, has taken what was an auxiliary office of the church given for the sake of recognizing pious women who are washing the feet of the saints, that's what they're doing, and taking ownership of them as the church, and turn it into, instead, what you tell kids at Lutheran high school they should do the rest of their lives because we need church workers. And since you're a woman, you can't be a pastor, so deaconesses is what you can do, right? Like, that's a long way away from, young unmarried women waiting to be married, serving as nurses in Saxony in a small town somewhere because the local pastor there creates a program to train them to do so, to look after the sick and the infirm in the region of the territory that they live in pre-Germany. It's not even Germany yet, right? And that's some of what well-known Wilhelm Leah did in his community with the deaconesses that he worked with. And I don't claim to be an expert in everything. And Leah has some speckled spots if you're a Missouri Synod Lutheran. So it's not as though everything he did was right. But that's just the thing, is that the deaconess as a concept is a wax nose. The real question isn't, has the church had a place to recognize women in their work of service? The question is, why are we turning this one into a career with a college degree requirement program and a call process right now for the first time ever? Why do we do that? Was it because we believe in biblical manhood and womanhood? Was that why we did it? So here's my thing then now, right? What should you ask? I forget how your question went exactly, but it was like, what are the important things to ask here? Is whatever you're calling a deaconess, her job, her role, her debt load she carries into the marriage, is any of that going to make it so she can't stay home with her kids? Because then it's not a deaconess, biblically speaking, or even historically speaking, in the church. So deaconesses in the church prior to our world, they would have been unmarried. It's just generally speaking. If they weren't, they were the exception to the rule. And they certainly would have been, they wouldn't have been back at work 3 weeks after they gave birth because they need to, keep the healthcare going or whatever. Like, it just, it's not how it would work. So you're right to be a little concerned, and yet you're also right in what you found. It's like, no, there's a historical precedent here that women are Christians too, and some women are not married during various portions. All women are not married during portions of their life, and that some then have the time and the diligence and the heart to give their soul and their life to the local congregation. And if the local congregation wants to recognize them in this so that they have some authority within the group so that when they visit the sick and the infirm, like they're like, oh, the deaconess from my church came today. Like, that's great, right? But now let's create a called, rostered position to go with our DCO and our musician and our third pastor so that we can have a female on staff. I mean, again, don't get me wrong. My guess is almost every congregation in the Missouri Synod that has a deaconess on staff has a need they're trying to meet. Mm-hmm. I don't doubt that, right? The big question is that need mothers staying home with their kids? Because that's the one that seems to be one we haven't thought about enough. Again, it's, please just don't hear me saying that if you don't stay home with your kids, you're a sinner. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Not everyone has that opportunity. The question is, why is the church calling women to not stay home with their kids? That's the question, right? Not can you live in a life in which you have a career. It's just, is that what the church is supposed to do? Is give careers to women? Is that what we came for, right? Because if not, then why aren't we trying to see how to have the problems that we need to have be solved by, say, another pastor or by a Christian layman stepping up, or by a local woman who you call a deaconess but you don't pay. Like, that wouldn't count, right? You can't do that in the Missouri Synod. We have a deaconess program. You can't just be a woman who serves the church and be called a deaconess. Why is that? Leah, he just again started, I think, largely a program on his own, mostly dealing with nursing, I think, too. So I don't know. There you go. It's tough. The deaconesses I have met in the Missouri Synod all mean incredibly well. They're all just wanting so hard to share Jesus somehow. I just don't see how that aligns with what the Bible encourages us to have young women do, which is to marry and raise their families. Getting a postgraduate degree, 2-year postgraduate degree, financially. I mean, I don't know if they get a free ride now at some of the seminaries now, because I know the pastoral formation is getting that at Fort Wayne and St. Louis right now, but I don't know if the deaconesses do or not. I just can't imagine. We pay pastors $35,000 to $40,000 a year when they come out, and the deaconess is going to get like. It's not healthy. That's not healthy. What I just talked about. But I feel sad because I know somewhere out there's a deaconess who's mad. I don't want y'all to think that you gave away your lives. I just think that the spirit of the age that we're swimming in is just blowing hard in the wrong direction, and it's hard to see it until it's too late. We had questions this week that we did not get to, 2 of them official ones, and Frisbee, if you're watching, we'll pick those up next time. But there were also a couple questions that I think I can answer pretty quickly that did not, and they're not really official show questions, but someone had written in and asked about Rockford Lutheran schools and what I knew about Rockford Lutheran. And my guess is, based upon the question, is kind of like, okay, yeah, so here's the deal. The LCMS had several grade schools and a high school in the Rockford, Illinois area. Grade schools feeding into that high school, Rockford Lutheran High School, up until the 90s, at which point there were some financial troubles and some restructuring things that took place, and there were some agreements that were signed, which brought, maybe it was the 80s, which brought many, I believe at the time, Lutheran Church in America congregations on board with the LCMS congregations together to form an alliance to keep the school alive. And sometime after that, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America was formed from that body and several others, which led to this weird scenario of a joint ELCA, LCMS high school that already kind of had registered service organization of the LCMS status, and wouldn't you know, grandfather, they're just still here for that reason. And so, yeah, the LCMS had a high school that 10 years ago had a woman pastor, as I think she was the actual superintendent before Mr. Gillingham came, and then Mr. Gillingham has moved on since then. it's a fascinating place. There's a lot of good people there. There's a lot of things I'm like, wow, that's not how I would do it. It's a good example of how so many of those institutions that we set our hopes on the future for are kind of, well, you can stand there and fight for your turf a little bit, but you got to recognize that turf's not really your turf anymore. Right? And or maybe you're in charge of the board of directors, or you have a ruling set of power or something like that, but it's not as though you actually can like just go out there and change things at the school without the school collapsing, right? Or confusing everyone there or whatnot. So there you go. Rockford Lutheran School. It's I realized that they're the Royals. No, they're the Crusaders. Where did I see the Royals?
Yeah.
There's a Royals thing that was like a Lutheran school sign. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Doesn't
think.
matter. Rockford Lutheran School. It's we got good staff members there, and potential to really be like they've got a new principal, there's a new superintendent. They're looking for a new principal. There's the goal that it would be a Christian school, right? So those are good things. Someone asked about Fritz Zerbst, the Office of Woman in the Church as a work. I've recommended that work in the past. I read it at seminary. I have a copy. They're hard to get a hold of. It is one of the early works on man and woman in Christ in the Missouri Synod, predating much of our giving up of that theology and really calling it right from the start of what we should have done. Even as we retain the office of the ministry for males, our reasoning again has not been clear. So we're like, yeah, you can't be a pastor, but we can't tell the difference most of the time anyway in terms of what we expect man and woman to be publicly and all this. Zerbst is good. It's been a while, so maybe there's a sentence or two in there I'd quibble with now more, but it's a good find. If you can find a copy of it, hold on to it. And someone wrote about what if I'm in my mid-20s and I want to come to Hebron? Is it for, senior high school kid to college freshman kid only? And the answer is no. The Hebron Collegium is a retreat center, right? It's a school that is like a spiritual center, that is like a monastery, that is like a place where you're going to come and, yeah, you're going to read. There's going to be some class. There's going to be self-directed learning. And certainly our target audience or our target demographic is going to be young men between high school and college, because this is when formation can really happen, right? Like it's just such an important time in life. But that doesn't mean that you can't say, no, I really need this. I need a year. I need 6 months reading the Bible with a couple other guys, 5 other guys, close quarters, going to church, getting involved with the men's group, singing in the choir. I wouldn't mind a little jiu-jitsu. And some contemplation time. Like, no, yeah. I mean, send me an email, come and visit, spend a couple of days here, see if it really is something you're into. It isn't about age. Having a fellowship at the Hebron Collegium is about whether or not you really want what it has to offer for you, and whether you're going to make that better when you get here, or if you're going to pull it down, right? Not really know what you're after. So that's that one there. Of course, you can find out more again at thehebroncollegium.com. So there you go. I think that gets us far enough through all of that for now. I want to say to all of you, thank you for watching. You definitely got us up so that we're 49 likes and 37 views. That makes you kind of like a Saturday morning crowd. I mean, they get a little higher than this. So I think maybe a few of you watching out there could push this more before it's over. Or you could head on over to patreon.com/RevFisk and subscribe to us there to help support the show, as well as all the other stuff that we do. Mad Christian Mondays, madpxm.com, Brief History of Power, the Saved podcast, and all this. So, I don't know. I'm sure I forgot something, but it's Friday night and it's a busy weekend, and that's good enough, I guess, for me at this point. You
Sounds
feel like
good.
we've got there?
Yes. Thank you for all your answers tonight.
Well, you had quite a few yourself, and they were good. Yeah. Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for. That makes you immortal now. And he's not going to be long anyway. The water seals it. The food feeds it. This is Christianity. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I am Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
Don't wallow in the muck with those who have no hope, but lift up your heads all the more as you see the day approaching. We'll see you next week. Rock on and alleluia.
Was that worth $1? Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?